You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill News. I'd just like to say hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and thank you for joining me for this report. We've got lots of interesting news coming up for you. We've got clips from Doug Collins, Lindsey Graham, and President Trump talking about John Kerry engaging in negotiations with a foreign government. That's called a violation of the Logan Act. We also have stories regarding China's successful efforts to obtain NSA spying tools and Republican lawmakers hitting back at the most recent subpoena of Donald Trump Jr. For what? Nothing. He was completely exonerated already. Absolutely no reason for him to be subpoenaed before Congress. Before we begin with anything else, we're going to listen to this clip of Doug Collins talking about the attacks against Barr and the IG report, the reasons behind that. This is from my good friend Methods. Let's take a listen.
On the IG report, how do you believe this story changes once we see it?
Now you've hit the real story. This is why they're trying to paint Bill Barr as well. When the IG report comes back about the FISA abuse and how this actually got started, they know that the Attorney General has said, I'm committed to actually finding out how we got into this mess. That's why the Democrats are painting him as someone not telling the truth and not being cooperative, because when this comes out, they're going to have to deal with the fact of what I've talked about and many others of the corrupt cabal of Comey and Strzok and Page and how this actually got started. And that's what they're afraid of with Bill Barr.
Okay.
First of all, I love the fact that Doug just used the phrase cabal. He called them a cabal, and that's exactly what they are. You know, a lot more than just the reputation of the Democrats is on the line here. We're talking about potentially their very freedom. So, of course, they are going to do everything that they possibly can to paint Bill Barr as some type of monster, a liar, someone who cannot be trusted. But the truth is, Bill Barr is probably one of the only honest people in Washington, D.C., besides several of our Republican colleagues there on the Hill, and of course, our president, Donald J. Trump. Before we get into anything else, we have a quick word from my sponsor. How many of you are tired of paying too much for auto, health, or life insurance? With a few simple clicks, you can stop paying for overpriced insurance and save money every month. You can cut your insurance rates substantially and save big with PatriotRates.com. They're an American insurance company you can trust, and they're owned by veterans. Patriot Rates sources competitive pricing on auto, health, and life insurance, and will always have your back when it comes to finding the best quote to fit your needs. I myself got my auto insurance cheaper just by using their free service, so you've got nothing to lose. Give it a try at www.patriotrates.com, get a free quote on auto, health, and life insurance, and you can stop paying for overpriced insurance. Visit www.patriotrates.com today for your free quote. Now, speaking of the cabal, we know that the report on Comey is about to come out very, very soon. And our friend Methods reminds us, since we know they will undoubtedly jump to defend Comey when his world comes crashing down, here's a friendly reminder of what some of them have said in the past. Let's take a listen.
The President of the United States is lying about the FBI, attacking the FBI, and attacking the rule of law in this country. How does that make any sense at all? The FBI's reputation has taken a big hit, but that damage has nothing to do with me.
The FBI director has no credibility.
But I was on the way to winning until the combination of Jim Comey's letter on October 28th.
The Comey letter was a foul deed.
There's an expression in the Justice Department, we don't shame without charging. James Comey violated that rule. He should have been fired.
Comey acknowledged publicly what a disservice he's rendered to our country.
We were just about to have a nice, boring, moderate Democrat for a president until you decided to open your mouth a week before the election, you big dumb scarecrow.
My confidence in the FBI director's ability to lead this agency has been shaken.
Jim Comey violated practice and procedure. He applied a double standard.
But I knew that this would depress the Hillary vote. Not all the vote, but even if it depressed 10% of it.
Thank you, President Frederick. I pray no FBI director ever has to deal with this again.
You gotta love it. The Democrats absolutely vilify James Comey. And now that it's back to being St. Jim, we are going to see them come to his defense, rush to his defense. And they're going to do anything they can to paint him as this amazing figure, the best FBI director we've ever seen. How could Jim Comey do anything wrong? Well, guys, just take a look. Remember, these were your words. Now, Donald J. Trump, President Donald J. Trump, speaking on the Russian witch hunt. Again, from my friend Methods. Let's take a listen.
I'll tell you what they are asking. They are asking about how did this whole thing start? That's what people want to know. And I want to tell you, I had an event last night. A lot of you were there. Thousands and thousands of people standing in a field. They've never seen anything like it, meaning even the press. But it's always that way. We've never had an empty seat. Thousands of people last night. You know what they want to know? How did this whole thing start? It's going to be hard for them to answer that one. Yeah, please.
That's a great question. How did this whole thing start? Well, we've been told by the mainstream media that it started with this Russian witch hunt investigation. Well, it looks like that's actually not quite accurate. Well, according to this article, it would appear that it started some time prior to that. Perhaps this is what Joe diGenova was hinting at. It says here that the FBI opened an obstruction of justice probe against President Trump prior to the Mueller probe. In April 2018, DAG Rod Rosenstein told President Trump in a private meeting that he was not a target of any special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. The meeting took place in early 2018, and Rosenstein, who brought up the investigations himself, offered the assurance during a meeting with Trump at the White House. In May 2018, House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy told reporters FBI Director Christopher Wray and a Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein assured him and several lawmakers that the ongoing Russian witch hunt has nothing to do with Donald Trump. But the FBI and DOJ were lying to the president and congressional leaders. In January, the New York Times reported the FBI investigated U.S. President Trump after he fired crooked director James Comey. And today, Fox News reported that Rosenstein and the FBI, despite his lies, were investigating Trump back in January 2017. Boom, Joe called it. It appears the top officials in the FBI and DOJ lied numerous times to the U.S. president and Congress. From Fox News, a newly unsealed court document reveals the FBI opened an obstruction of justice case against President Trump before special counsel Robert Mueller was appointed to investigate Russia's interference in the 2016 election. Trump claimed earlier this year that he was assured by DAG Rod that he was not a target or a subject of Mueller's probe. But the final Mueller report shows his investigators looked closely at the question of whether Trump obstructed justice, while not reaching a conclusion. And according to the court document released this week, that avenue of investigation was being pursued even before Mueller took over. Michael Dreeben, an attorney for the special counsel's office, said in a January 2018 hearing in federal court that in 2017, before the appointment of the special counsel in May, the FBI had opened up an investigation into obstruction of justice. The 2018 hearing concerned an unsuccessful lawsuit from CNN seeking copies of former FBI Director James Comey's memos about his interactions with Trump. CNN ordered a transcript of that hearing Tuesday after the Justice Department, under a court order, was forced to provide the transcript to the cable network. Now the question becomes, what specific day did this investigation open into President Trump? Was it prior to his inauguration, or was it just after his inauguration? If it was prior to his inauguration, then we know that it began under the former president's tenure. If it started after his inauguration, then we know that it was a part of the coup that we've been talking about for so long. Now, either way, they were trying to set him up beforehand, or they were trying to set him up afterwards. If it happened before, what was the predicate for an investigation of obstruction of justice? Because he could not have committed obstruction of justice yet, and there would be nothing for him to obstruct, we now know, because there is absolutely no crime that was committed. Any way you cut it, this stinks, and they're going to have to answer for it. It's no wonder that Christopher Wray doesn't want to admit that there was spying done on the president, or even on his campaign prior to becoming president. We'll have to keep a close eye on this, guys, because I think it's going to get juicy. Now, at that same press conference from earlier today that the president spoke about the origins of the Russian witch hunt, he also spoke specifically about John Kerry in regards to Iran and the Logan Act. He said that John Kerry speaks to them a lot. John Kerry tells them not to call. That's a violation of the Logan Act, and frankly, he should be prosecuted for that. Well, Mr. President, I'd have to agree with you on this count. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
What I'd like to see with Iran, I'd like to see them call me. You know, John Kerry speaks to them a lot. John Kerry tells them not to call. That's a violation of the Logan Act. And frankly, he should be prosecuted on that. But my people don't want to do anything that's, only the Democrats do that kind of stuff, you know? If it were the opposite way, they'd prosecute him under the Logan Act. But John Kerry violated the Logan Act. He's talking to Iran and has many meetings and many phone calls, and he's telling them what to do.
This is clearly against the law. John Kerry is meddling in the affairs of the current administration. He is not in a position to be speaking to the leaders of a foreign government, let alone the leaders of a government like Iran, where every single interaction can become so vitally important to our current relations with that country. John Kerry has no business doing what he's doing, and frankly, I am dismayed at the fact that the current administration's DOJ declines to prosecute John Kerry. I believe John Kerry deserves to be fully brought to justice under any means necessary now that we have a new leader in the DOJ. Bill Barr should take a close look at the Logan Act and determine whether or not it's worth it to have our relations with a foreign government, an adversary of the magnitude of Iran, do nothing regarding the way that he's acting and the things that he is pursuing with that government. John Kerry needs to be prosecuted under the Logan Act, and President Trump is correct. Now, we're going to talk about the Logan Act in a little bit more detail because President Trump said it. The Logan Act is a law, so why is it not being used? John Kerry negotiating with the foreign government, completely flagrant violation of the Logan Act. And President Trump said it today in that press conference. He said he should be prosecuted. So why is the DOJ declining to do it? The Logan Act criminalizes negotiations by unauthorized persons with foreign governments having a dispute with the United States. The purpose of the Logan Act is to prevent an unauthorized person, i.e. John Kerry, from undermining the government's current position, and John Kerry violated the Logan Act. He's talking to Iran and has many meetings and many phone calls, and he's telling them what to do. This is a total violation of the Logan Act.
If it were the opposite way, they'd prosecute him under the Logan Act. But John Kerry violated the Logan Act. He's talking to Iran and has many meetings and many phone calls, and he's telling them what to do. That is a total violation of the Logan Act. Because what they should be doing is, their economy is a mess ever since I took away the Iran deal.
If the Iranians had any sense at all, or if they had adequate counsel from someone perhaps working within our government and not a past administration, they would realize that it's in their best interest to do business with President Donald Trump and the current leadership in America. There is absolutely no sense in what they're doing, except that perhaps they are receiving bad advice. Maybe they're being told that President Trump is not going to be in office for a second term. Perhaps they're being told that President Trump will not even complete his first term. Who knows what John Kerry is talking to Iran about, but we know that it's illegal. Now, last May, it was reported by the Boston Globe that former President BO's former Secretary of State John Kerry had been secretly meeting with foreign officials to salvage Iran's nuclear weapons program. John Kerry also reportedly met with French President Emmanuel Macron in both New York City and Paris, a second violation of the Logan Act. On May 8, 2018, President Trump announced he was set to withdraw from BO's Iran nuke deal, calling it one of the worst deals he's ever witnessed. Leading up to Trump's announcement, John Kerry, the architect of the Iran nuke deal, was reportedly behind the scenes on a stealthy yet aggressive mission of shadow diplomacy, desperately trying to preserve his pact by meeting with Iranian official Javad Zarif. Trump's current Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, called John Kerry's meeting with the world's largest state sponsor of terror unseemly and unprecedented and beyond inappropriate, not to mention illegal. BO and his officials continue to undermine President Trump on the world stage without fear of reprisal. John Kerry was previously seen in Paris meeting with Iran officials. BO was recently in Germany secretly meeting with Chancellor Merkel and Hillary Clinton, traveled to Puerto Rico, U.S. territory, in January to meet with the governor of San Juan to help rebuild infrastructure after a powerful hurricane destroyed the island. Perhaps yet another violation of the Logan Act. Apparently, the Logan Act only applies to Republicans, and specifically General Michael Flynn. If nothing else, President Trump and the administration, if for no other reason, look at the fact that they went after General Flynn, a true American hero and a patriot. Absolutely unfair and unfathomable. However, you have people out there currently doing something far worse and endangering the safety and security of Americans on a daily basis, and absolutely nothing has happened to them. I can only hope that there is something in the works, and we'll see this case shape up in the future. But for right now, John Kerry, former President BO, and Hillary Clinton are all out there on the world stage, and they are destroying the possibility of adequate, constructive negotiations with foreign governments, and that right there is a danger to the safety of Americans, to every single one of us. The DOJ needs to do something about this because this cannot stand. Well, this is breaking news. Today, a former intelligence analyst was arrested for leaking classified information to a news outlet under the tenure of the former administration. Former Intel analyst Daniel Everett Hale, 31, of Nashville, Tennessee, was arrested Thursday morning and charged with leaking classified information to a news outlet. Hale, who was enlisted in the U.S. Air Force from July 09 to July 13, has been charged with leaking classified documents about a military campaign against AQ to a reporter for The Intercept back in 2013 and 2014. According to the indictment, Daniel Hale, who held a top-secret, sensitive, compartmented information security clearance, gave 11 top-secret documents to a reporter, which were later published either in part or in whole online. From the Justice Department. According to allegations in the indictment beginning in April 2013, while enlisted in the U.S. Air Force and assigned to the NSA, Hale began communicating with a reporter. Hale met with the reporter in person on multiple occasions and at times communicated with the reporter via an encrypted messaging platform. Then, in February 2014, while working as a cleared defense contractor at NGA, Hale printed 6 classified documents unrelated to his work at NGA and soon after exchanged a series of messages with the reporter. Each of the 6 documents printed were later published by the reporter's news outlet. According to allegations in the indictment, while employed as a cleared defense contractor for NGA, Hale printed from his top-secret computer 36 documents, including 23 documents unrelated to his work at NGA. Of the 23 documents related to his work at NGA, Hale provided at least 17 to the reporter and/or the reporter's online news outlet, which published the documents in whole or in part. 11 of the published documents were classified as top secret or secret and marked as such. According to allegations in the indictment in August 2014, Hale's cell phone contact list included contact information for the reporter, and he possessed 2 thumb drives. One thumb drive contained a page marked secret from a classified document that Hale had printed in February 2014 and had attempted to delete from the thumb drive. The other thumb drive contained Tor software and the Tails operating system, which were recommended by the reporter's online news outlet in an article published on its website regarding how to anonymously leak documents. Daniel Hale is charged with obtaining national defense information, retention and transmission of national defense information, causing the communication of national defense information, disclosure of classified communications intelligence information, and the theft of government property, the government said. Each charge carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. Recall, former NSA contractor Reality Lee Winner was arrested and sentenced to more than 5 years in prison for leaking classified documents to The Intercept. Now, I suppose the question now becomes, what was that information that he leaked, and did he put American interests at risk? It really doesn't matter, because you sign documents for your security clearance indicating that you will not break it under any circumstances, and this individual, Daniel Hale, did that for his own gratification, I would imagine. He probably wanted the satisfaction of knowing that he was a source for The Intercept and wanted to put that information out there. Now, why would you do that? For what other reason? Did he actually believe that he was doing something good? We'll have to go back and take a look at whatever these documents were that were published by The Intercept back in 2013 and 2014. All right, here from an article by CNBC, it says that the indictment alleges that Hale printed 11 secret and top-secret documents that were later published by Jeremy Scahill at The Intercept. 6 of those documents were published in October 2015, and they were the Drone Papers, a series of investigative articles the outlet said was based on a cache of secret documents obtained from a whistleblower. Well, this is not whistleblowing because it was not something that was illegal. This was U.S. government prerogative, and if it was a whistleblower, they would have gone through proper whistleblowing channels. In one article in the series, Scahill wrote that the unnamed source provided the documents because he believes the public has a right to understand the process by which people are placed on these lists and ultimately taken out on orders from the highest echelons of the U.S. government. The indictment details a number of communications between Hale and the reporter, including 3 conversations over the encrypted messaging app Jabber. The indictments say that in April 2013, Hale attended an event at a Washington bookstore where he met the reporter. Scahill was then promoting his book Dirty Wars about the U.S. increasing use of special operations forces and drones in the Middle East. Dirty Wars was also released as a documentary film that year. In May, Hale texted a friend that the reporter wants me to tell my story about working with drones at the opening screening of his documentary about war and the use of drones. In July, the indictment alleges Hale provided the reporter with a copy of his unclassified resume and highlighted his experience operating payloads and remotely piloted vehicles. The indictment alleges that the following February, Hale used a work computer to print 6 documents that were unrelated to his work as an analyst. 4 hours later, Hale and the reporter discussed meeting in Washington, according to a text exchange included in the indictment. In the following months, the indictment alleges Hale provided 5 more classified documents that were later published by the outlet. The last documents noted in the indictment were published in December 2016. Scahill and the staff of The Intercept published a book, The Assassination Complex Inside the Government's Secret Drone Warfare Program. The Intercept has come under scrutiny for its handling of documents provided by sources in the past, and of course that was included as Reality Winner, the former Air Force linguist who published information related to Russian efforts, and it all ended up being a snow job. You know, perhaps the NSA knew that Reality Winner would be the type of person that would leak these documents, and they set her up. I think I remember hearing something like that back then. But basically, it looks to me like by publishing this information, the leaker did do damage to the United States' sources and methods and the means by which we decide to place people on these particular lists. I think that it would be kind of obvious, though, how those people would come to be on those lists. If they're going to be droned, then they must be some bad hombres. But we'll have to see how this bears out. Now next, the story on Chinese spying. They acquired NSA tools and they used them to attack U.S. allies. Not a good look. A leading cybersecurity firm found evidence Chinese intelligence operatives repurposed a national security agency hacking technology in 2016 to attack American allies and private firms in Europe and Asia. Researchers with Symantec believe the Chinese government captured the code from an NSA hack on their own systems rather than stealing it, according to the article. The hacking group that repurposed the tools has committed several attacks on U.S. targets, including space, satellite, and nuclear propulsion tech manufacturers, according to the Times. Some of the same tools were also dumped online by an unidentified group calling itself the Shadow Brokers, later used by North Korean and Russian intelligence, according to the Times, although there is no apparent connection between the Chinese acquisition and Shadow Brokers activity. Shadow Brokers, I believe that's who Nate Kane was referring to in our interview the other day. While Symantec is not sure how the Chinese got the code, Chinese intelligence contractors have used the tools to conduct cyber warfare in Belgium, Hong Kong, Luxembourg, the Philippines, and Vietnam, with targets ranging from schools and scientific research to the government of a U.S. ally. In one case, an operation against a telecommunications network may have led them to obtain as many as millions of private communications, according to Symantec. Symantec's research does not explicitly identify the Chinese government, instead referencing the Pkwy Group, the firm's term for a team of hackers identified by both the Justice Department and private firms as a contractor for Chinese Ministry of State, according to the report. The Justice Department indicted 3 hackers connected to the group in 2017. This is the first time we've seen a case that people have long referenced in theory of a group recovering unknown vulnerabilities and exploits used against them, and then using these exploits to attack others, Eric Chen, a security director at Symantec, told The Times. This is bad news here, guys. These tools are extremely important. And as Nate said the other night, it gives us a notable strategic advantage, the type of advantage that perhaps stops us from having to go to war with a country such as China. But now, with China having the same technology, it leaves our allies and ourselves at great risk. So I would like to probably discuss this with both Nate and White Hat, and we'll see if we can get a hold of them and perhaps do something later on in the show, or perhaps a piece for this weekend. Now, earlier in the broadcast, we had that clip from President Trump referencing the rally that he held in Panama Beach last night. And right here, my friend CJ Peterson on Twitter posted a picture of the rally itself, and it was sent by one of his friends that lives in the area. So this is the kind of thing that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. They don't want you to know how popular President Trump is. This movement is so vitally important to the survival of not only us as a people, but the United States as a whole. Look at the number of people that we have there. Now, this is only just a cross-section, but right here you can clearly tell that we have a group of people made up from all walks of life and all creeds and colors within the United States. President Trump is truly a man of the people. He is doing the work for America and for no one else. The mainstream media would have you believe that he is some selfish tyrant, a narcissistic madman who is in this for his own benefit. Now, you and I, we know better, but Trump derangement syndrome is real, and these people are sick. We have so much work to do. But hopefully, with all of the disclosures that are soon to come out any day now, beginning any day now, the average American citizen who is suffering from Trump derangement syndrome can hope to finally get some peace. Now, I mentioned earlier that Don Jr. has been subpoenaed, and top Republican lawmakers in both chambers have slammed the Senate Intel Chairman Richard Burr for issuing that subpoena. Top Republican senators and representatives slammed Senate Intel Chairman Richard Burr for issuing Donald Trump Jr. a subpoena over Russia matters. The case closed Russia matters. The GOP-led Senate Intelligence Committee subpoenaed Donald Trump Jr. to answer questions about his prior testimony to Senate investigators related to the Russia investigation by May 15th. Axios reported on the subpoena of Don Jr., the first subpoena of one of President Trump's children that we know of, citing sources with direct knowledge. The Senate Intel panel, chaired by Rhino Richard Burr and co-chaired by the incredibly corrupt Mark Warner of Virginia, are purposely dragging out the Russia investigation and won't be releasing a final report until the end of the summer. Republican lawmakers from both chambers lashed out at Burr. Senator Rand Paul, a favorite of mine, slammed Burr. Apparently, the Republican chair of the Senate Intel Committee didn't get the memo from the majority leader that this case was closed, Paul said in a tweet. In the other chamber, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy defended Donald Trump Jr. Wednesday. Donald Trump Jr. has already spent dozens of hours testifying in front of congressional committees. Endless investigations by either party won't change the fact that there was no collusion. It's time to move on. It's time to focus on issues, not investigation, McCarthy said. Congressman Lee Zeldin suggested Burr is taking orders from the unhinged resistance Democrats. Other notable conservatives, such as Dr. Gorka, slammed Burr. The Senate should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this, Dr. Gorka said. No rhinos. Political operative and close friend to Donald Trump Jr., Arthur Schwartz, posted a cryptic warning. Politicians who can't keep their zippers closed shouldn't start wars in Washington, Schwartz warned. Wow. Not so cryptic there, but I wonder what Schwartz knows about Burr. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has not yet said a word about the subpoena. He must speak about this abuse of power under his watch because he just said from the Senate floor Tuesday that as far as the Trump-Russia witch hunt is concerned, it's case closed. It is case closed. The entire investigation, every single investigation, has led absolutely nowhere. They are wasting American taxpayer dollars and vital time that they could be using to work on policy and issues that are really hurting American people. But instead, they would rather waste money and time dealing with something that has already been settled. There is no obstruction. There is no collusion. Whatever part the Russians played in meddling with our election, we have other countries that we can be looking at that are hurting American interests as we speak. Specifically, China, which I've already mentioned and I've spoken about on many times before. This is a travesty of justice. How can this be happening still in this day and age when President Trump and everyone in his orbit has already been exonerated of crimes they never committed? This is a waste of time. This is a waste of effort. This is a waste of resources, and these people should be ashamed of themselves. Now, I spoke yesterday about the fact that Democrats have held Barr in contempt. And just in, the Justice Department has hit back at Nadler. They've responded to the Dem resolution to hold Attorney General Barr in contempt of Congress. President Trump on Wednesday asserted executive privilege over the full unredacted version of Mueller's report, and the House Dems voted to hold AG Barr in contempt of Congress for refusing to give Congress the full report and underlying grand jury material. Nadler and the Dems voted to hold Barr in contempt for following the law. This is the current state of affairs in this country. The Dem-controlled Judiciary Committee, chaired by Representative Gerald Nadler, held a vote Wednesday morning and voted on party lines, 22 Dems to 12 Republicans. The measure will then move to the full House for a vote later this month. The Justice Department hit back at Nadler and the Dems in a statement Wednesday afternoon. The DOJ argued that AG Barr made extraordinary efforts to provide Congress with information related to Mueller's report. However, the Attorney General was not going to break the law. The Attorney General could not comply with the House Judiciary Committee's subpoena without violating the law, court rules, and court orders, and without threatening the independence of the Justice Department's prosecutorial functions, DOJ spokesperson Kerry said. Nadler gave the Justice Department a 9 a.m. Monday deadline to comply with the committee's new offer, which included allowing more members of Congress to look at a less redacted version of Mueller's report. Nadler also wanted Barr to seek a court order to grant lawmakers the right to view the underlying grand jury material. Barr complied with the law and blocked the grand jury material from the public and Congress to protect innocent people who have not been indicted. Under special counsel rules, Attorney General Bill Barr didn't even need to release Mueller's report to the public or to Congress. The unredacted version of the report is in a SCIF for certain lawmakers to view. However, only 2 of those lawmakers have viewed the less redacted version of the report. DOJ spokesperson Kerry continued, "Unfortunately, rather than allowing the negotiations to continue, Chairman Nadler short-circuited these efforts by proceeding with a politically motivated and unnecessary contempt vote, which he refused to postpone to allow additional time to explore discussion and compromise. It is deeply disappointing that elected representatives of the American people have chosen to engage in such inappropriate political theatrics. Regrettably, Chairman Nadler's actions have prematurely terminated the accommodation process and forced the president to assert executive privilege to preserve the status quo. No one, including Chairman Nadler and his committee, will force the Department of Justice to break the law," the statement said. "There is no compromising with the left. The Democrats will do anything to destroy President Trump and his family and his administration. We are at a place now where the Attorney General is being held in contempt of Congress for following the law, and left-wing reporters are joking with the Speaker of the House about jailing Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and Trump's associates for following the law." This is truly the mirror world, you guys. The Dems have done whatever they could to attempt to destroy the fabric of our republic. We have a government who is finally following the rule of law instead of obstructing it every chance they get, and the Democrats don't know what to do with themselves. We cannot allow the Democrats to tear our country apart, but that is exactly what is happening. This situation is only going to get worse as long as the Democrats have any bit of power. So when it comes time for the next election in 2020, I urge all of you, make sure you get out and vote. Make sure that you speak to your friends and your loved ones. Make sure that you do whatever you can to assist any candidates that will be going against Democrats in the next election. We need to preserve not only the office of the president and the Senate, but we need to take back the House. Huge! Lindsey Graham says the FBI classified a pre-election meeting between Christopher Steele, the State Department, and the FBI just last month. Senator Graham joined Sean Hannity on Tuesday night to discuss the illegal spying on candidate Trump by the former administration's deep state before the 2016 election. During their discussion, Lindsey Graham dropped this BOMB. Not only did the former president's FBI and DOJ lie to the FISA court to spy on candidate Trump and his family, but the FBI is still trying to cover it up. According to Senator Graham, the FBI classified all notes to a meeting prior to the election in 2016 between Fusion GPS's Christopher Steele, the FBI, and the former administration's State Department, and they only classified the meeting in April of this year, or just last month. Let's take a listen to this.
Steele's stunning pre-FISA confessions, this new report, and the closed-door testimony where we know Bruce Orr under oath said, well, I told everybody in August of 2016 it's an unverified document, and the dossier, and Steele hates Trump, and Hillary paid for it. You know, as I do, that it's unverifiable, but does it not say at the top of a FISA warrant, I just learned this today, verified?
Well, it's supposed to be. You're supposed to say under oath to the court that the document I'm presenting to you is accurate. That's the whole point of getting a warrant. You got to have reliable information. But why is this so important? We know in August of 2016, Orr tells the FBI senior leadership, you got to watch this Steele guy. He's out to get Trump. Now, what do we know? That Christopher Steele went to the Department of State on October the 11th to try to get the Department of State to release the dossier to the public for political reasons. They tell the FBI's. This is 10 days before they get the first warrant application verified. So 10 days before they applied for the FISA warrant, they were told in August that Steele's out to get Trump. In October, Steele goes to the State Department trying to get them to release it to the public for a political reason.
You know, you can't even make this up. Now,
Yeah.
I understand there's a Florida case, and we might get information from Steele, but we do know in the interrogatory where he was under the threat of perjury, he actually said, I have no idea if any of this is true, 50-50 at best. So doesn't that then render the dossier, the dirty Russian dossier, unverifiable?
Well, why is this important? We should all be concerned if our government's getting a warrant against an American citizen under the FISA Surveillance Act without accurate information. What do we know? We know that without the dossier, the warrant would not have been issued. People in charge tell us that. We now know that the author of the dossier, Christopher Steele, was on the payroll of the Democratic Party. He was not a reliable informant for the FBI. He was trying to destroy Trump because he's paid by the Democrats to take Trump down. They knew all of this, or should have known all this, before they applied for the warrant. So here's what needs to happen. Somebody needs to go to the FISA court and tell them that the FBI had plenty of notice that this guy was on the payroll of the Democratic Party and he was out to get Trump, and the dossier was not verified.
Senator, I'm not that
signed
smart. Would that be a conspiracy to commit fraud on a FISA court? And
well, here's the question. How could you not know that Steele should be looked at really hard, given what Orr said and given his actions on October 11th? You got to remember, the guy who started this, Steele, went to the State Department, and I don't know why he went to the State Department, for the express purpose of having the State Department release the dossier before the election.
And that was memorialized, we now know. That's the interesting part. And we have more emails coming.
Before the warrant.
Let me ask you, before the warrant, just like Orr said, he told everyone.
Yeah.
Let me go to Robert Mueller for a second. Because Mueller, I want to know, when did he know there was no conspiracy with the Trump campaign in Russia as it relates to collusion of any kind? When did he know that? Why did he hire only Democrats and even Hillary's attorney and one attorney known for withholding exculpatory evidence and having a really bad track record and failing? And why was he not concerned about Hillary's dirty Russian dossier when he had plenty of time to look into the medallions and FARA laws and loan applications and taxes? I would think the Russian dossier would have been important to Robert Mueller, but what do I know?
Well, somebody needs to look at this like Mueller looked at Trump. And here's the question. Why would the FBI classify this exchange between Steele and the State Department and the FBI April of this year?
Wow. Now, this is pretty interesting.
The very fact that the FBI would classify this meeting at this point means that there is something in there that they do not want people to know. Namely, I believe it would be the illegal nature of the investigation and how everything began. They have done nothing but attempt to try to smear the president and remove him from power since the moment it became obvious that he would. This is so vitally important, and Lindsey Graham is doing great work. Now, bring it home for us, Senator. This is exactly what America needs. Now, finally, Trump has turned on Bolton and accused him of trying to start a war in Venezuela. Well, it's starting to look like President Trump is not too happy with the conduct of John Bolton. Shortly before President Trump tweeted about a meeting with Marco Rubio and Rick Scott, where the terrible abuses by Maduro were discussed, the Washington Post published an anonymously sourced story claiming that Trump is growing frustrated with the situation in Venezuela and is blaming aides like Bolton for misleading him about opposition leader Juan Guaido's chances of success. According to WAPO, Trump has privately described Maduro as a tough cookie and blamed aides for misleading him when they said the socialist strongman could be ousted during last week's demonstrations. In recent days, Trump has expressed concern that Bolton is trying to get him into a war. We imagine a leaked plan for a U.S.-backed coup prepared by Southcom hasn't helped to assuage these concerns. And remember, Bolton has also been a key figure in escalating tensions with Iran to what is starting to look like the brink of an armed conflict. Though two WAPO sources insisted that Bolton's job is safe, for now at least, the fact that Trump has finally caught on to the drawbacks of Bolton's neocon-ishness and now appears to understand that Bolton's views are at odds with Trump's America First platform certainly doesn't bode well for his prospects. Earlier this week, Vice President Mike Pence revealed that the White House would lift sanctions on a general who had turned on Maduro and offered the same level of amnesty to any military officials who would join him. Still, the administration's policy is officially unchanged, but the report at least shows that Trump is uneasy about what appears to be a slow march towards another American military intervention and might be taking steps to stop it from happening. If Maduro is not meant to be the leader of Venezuela, then I personally think the citizens of Venezuela need to be the ones who take care of that. I think that marching America into another endless war in another country is a very bad idea. And I think that people like John Bolton, who is a notorious neocon and a war hawk, are not going to lead with the best intentions for Americans. We have a lot of things we need to take care of here in the homeland before we start another war with another country in another part of the world. America has been embroiled in conflict for so many decades. I think that Americans forget what it's like to live without war. We must secure our own borders before we start going and working on another country. When we have a coup still ongoing in our own country, I think that it's far more important to go about working on stopping that from happening and securing the safety and security of people here at home. What do you guys think? I know that there's been a lot of coverage recently. I've covered it myself in regards to Venezuela, in regards to specifically the coup that was attempted there not so long ago. But I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. I've gotten a lot of feedback from people in my email showing that perhaps what is being reported about Maduro and the people of Venezuela is not exactly accurate. Well, I'm not there. I have spoken to people, I've had people on my show before, Mariu, who talked about her experience, and it was certainly horrific. But there are always multiple sides to a story. So if there are other people out there who have something to say, maybe perhaps someone who is actually in Venezuela, I don't know that I have any people living in Venezuela watching the show, I would love to hear about it, because it's always good to hear from people on the ground. But as this stands right now, it looks to me like John Bolton is trying to get America into another war. And until we take care of some things here at home, I don't think that's a good idea. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.